Tommy, before we get to our conversation with Jose and CJ, I think it's important that we talk about the hottest team in basketball right now, and that is the Milwaukee Bucks. They won last night against Boston. We'll get to some anecdotes about that game in a second. But they won last night against Boston. They've won 11 games in a row. They're tied with Boston in the loss column. Essentially the best record in the NBA. They started out the season super hot, had a lull there, but they look like a true championship contender right now.
Yeah, we've talked about this last year and this year, but when all three of Giannis, Middleton, and Drew play, how good they are. They're now 14-2 this season with all three of them playing. But can you talk about Giannis for a second? Because, this is Giannis we're talking about. And I'm curious where this ranks for you in terms of his best stretches of his career.
Pretty much the top. I mean, here's the deal. Because we are going to have a little discussion about his MVP odds. He's been great all season. I will say that. He's been great all season. For Giannis, there was a stretch there where he wasn't as efficient as he's been. And he had to do a lot with Chris Middleton out of the lineup. The team in particular, although a number of players have improved their three-point shooting, the team in particular was really struggling early in the season on shooting threes. And even during this win streak, they're only 13th in offense over the 11 games relative to the rest of the NBA. It has been their defense. They're second during this win streak in the NBA in defensive rating. They're second for the season, just 22nd offensively. So Giannis is having to carry an unusually high workload on that end of the floor. During the win streak, 37 a game, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 58% from the field. Actually, if you go back all the way to this December 19th game, so a longer stretch here, 34.5, 13.5 rebounds, a little under 6 assists, 55% from the field. The turnovers are an issue. Again, if you're going to be a high turnover team or a high usage player that turns the ball over a lot, which a lot of them do, and you're not going to shoot threes well, but you're going to take a lot of threes, that's, to me, where this offense suffers a little bit. Just a math equation.
Yeah. I saw the stat before last night when they had won 10 in a row. Giannis is the first player since Oscar Robertson in 1964 to go 35, 10, and 5 on a 10-game winning streak. It feels like a little bit like we talked about with LeBron a couple weeks ago. He is just kind of taking all of these sort of milestones and smashing through them. The other thing, he's now 2 assists away from being the Bucks all-time leader in assists.
Yes.
So he will be the Bucks all-time leader in assists by the time that this airs.
It's crazy because the reason I'm dressed like this, I apologize for wearing this suit, Tommy. The reason I'm dressed like this is because I just got home from First Take, and we had a discussion about Kevin Durant's legacy, and anecdotally in that conversation, I kind of went through who I think are the top 10 players, top 10 to 15 all time. And I mentioned names past 15. I didn't mention Giannis because it still feels like he's early in his career. To me, this is a guy, I don't think it's a stretch to say he's going to go down as a top 15 player ever. I don't think it's a stretch to say he has a really good chance to be in the conversation as a top 10 player of all time. And I recognize that every modern NBA player has all the haters in the world. So Giannis travels too much. Giannis plays bully ball. Giannis can't make free throws. Giannis can't shoot jumpers. Great. The motherfucker dominates. Like, what more do you want me to say? Great. I get it. I hate to tell you guys, there is no perfect basketball player. There is no basketball player without 0 flaws in their game. None. George is the greatest player of all time. LeBron's the greatest player. Whoever. I don't care.
I love these.
They've all got flaws in their game. There's always something you can nitpick. You can't nitpick with greatness.
I love these stupid nitpicks because it just sets up these rants. It just allows you to just get going. So Giannis aside, who else in this run has been impressive? Drew obviously went for 40 last night, and he's been great. But what else about this team, is putting them in this position? And the second question, I was just thinking about this on the way over here today. Do you think it matters whether they have the 1 seed or not?
Oh, good question. Obviously, Game 7 last year, in Boston. I think it matters. I think when you're talking about two teams that had that series last year, obviously Middleton not in there, but had that series last year, they seem like they're set up on a collision course to meet in the conference finals. Yeah, I'll say home court matters. I'll say it matters. I want to put my hater hat on for 1 second. Just put it on. I'm not shitting on the winning streak. I'm not. Because it is so hard to win an NBA game. It really is. I don't care who's in the lineup. I don't care if you're at full strength and another team is missing a key player. It's still hard to win. You're playing against NBA players. You're playing against a game plan scheme by some of the greatest coaches in the world. It is hard to win. I do want to just note, okay, about this win streak. In this win streak, they've beaten the Nuggets. Jokic didn't play. They've beaten Indiana. Halliburton wasn't back yet. They've beaten New Orleans. Ingram wasn't back yet, and obviously Zion was missing. They've beaten the Lakers. LeBron did not play. That was the game after he broke the all-time scoring record. They beat the Clips with both Paul George and Kawhi. They did do that. They beat the Heat with Jimmy and Bam in the lineup and Tyler Hero. The second time they beat the Clips, Kawhi did not play, and last night against Boston, no Smart, no Tatum, no Jaylen Brown, no Al Horford. Again, not shitting on the win streak, but I kind of am. I'm not saying it's not a valid win streak.
There's your load management.
I'm just saying there's some context here. There's some context. But we actually, I've brought this up, I think specifically about the Warriors at times. When you get a team that's really good and they feel whole, and Middleton has played a bunch of these games in this win streak, and they feel whole, and you have a star player playing the way Giannis is playing, you may just get lucky and go on what I'm not saying the win streak's lucky. You may get lucky and you may play some teams in a stretch where they're missing players, either due to load management, either due to injury, whatever it may be. And Milwaukee's on that right now. That's not to say, Tommy, I don't think Milwaukee is one of the best teams in basketball and one of the best contenders.
I saw the NBA released their latest Defensive Player of the Year ladder, and Brook has passed Jaren Jackson, so he's now number one. We've talked about it a ton on the show. You are a huge fan of Brook Lopez, but is there anything in particular this year that you think that, I think he's shooting the highest 3-point percentage of his career, but is there anything in particular that you think he's doing differently that has, kind of allowed him to reach this level?
No, I don't think there's anything differently. I think it's a sort of natural maturation that happens with smart players who have a good skill set. It's like an accumulation of corporate knowledge to me. And the emphasis this year for the Milwaukee Bucks has been in limiting three-pointers. And so Brook has been in drop coverage for years in this system, but they've also helped in, which hasn't really made a lot of sense because he always is in such a heavy drop. This year, they're staying home more, especially in the corners, and they're allowing these 2-on-2 pick and rolls to materialize where they're not overhelping. And that's put a lot on him, and he's been great. And so I think it's all this experience that he's had. And is he great at switching? He's good. Yeah, I don't know what the numbers are. If I'm talking about centers who switch, I probably go with Jaren Jackson Jr. or Nick Claxton or, of course, Bam. I'd probably go with those guys. But Brook can do it. So he can sort of do it all, whether it's drop or switching at times against certain players. So to me, it's like it's like a great player just realizing and maximizing his ability. On the front about the Bucks being contenders, their odds on DraftKings Sportsbooks pretty much have not changed. They fluctuated between plus 600 and plus 800 all season. They're currently at plus 600, which is the third best odds. Boston Celtics have the highest odds. Phoenix Suns leapfrogging after the Kevin Durant trade to number 2. They're at plus 450 right now. Here's what's interesting, though. When we talk about the Eastern Conference, I found this really interesting. So Boston has the best odds, Milwaukee second, Philly third. In terms of the percentage of handled, the percentage of actual money going towards a team, Milwaukee has 38% of the money bet on them to win the East. Boston has just 14%. So there are some sharks out there who are betting heavily. And again, some of this may just be the odds, and They bet earlier in the year when the odds were at plus 400 to win the East versus where they are now at plus 240.
You think some of that is a level of like, this is a team that went 7 games last year, like we said, without Middleton?
100%.
So
And it's Giannis.
You put Chris Middleton on that team. I mean, who knows? It's one game, anything can happen. But
will Giannis win his third MVP? That's a question. Will Jokic win his third MVP? Will Embiid win his first? It's interesting. Tatum hasn't played as well as he was playing early in the season of late, and his MVP odds have dipped considerably. He was the front runner for a couple months of the season. Jokic now the odds-on favorite because he's at negative 155. Joel second with plus 350. Giannis plus 750 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I like that Giannis bet a lot. I like it a lot.
I think it's going to be if the Bucks finish first in the East and Denver finishes first or second in the West, I think it's going to be really interesting to see that decision.
Yeah. I look at the season for these awards, and again, I don't have a vote, but I look at the season as a whole. I look at it as a whole. And if you were to tell me right now, Bucks finish first in the East and Giannis, I mean, maybe not 37 a game for the rest of the year, but is doing what he's done since December 19th, 34.5, 13.5 rebounds, 5.6 assists, it's a really tough decision because Jokic is that awesome. Giannis has been that awesome. Joel, of course, is awesome. Yeah. And then you start talking about, all NBA stuff with these guys. It's fascinating. NBA fans, it's time to bring the hoops action to the palm of your hand with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up with code JJ. Right now, you can bet $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code JJ. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.